Okay, so before we get started, you're going to want to make sure, or try and make sure, that your violin is in tune. It's really not a lot of fun at all practicing or playing on an out-of-tune violin. So in order to do that, you're going to need probably a tuning app for your nearest, most convenient adult's smartphone. I'm going to recommend a couple of these. They're both really good. They work really well, and they're both completely free. I'm going to recommend one for Android and one for iPhone, so that we should get just about everything covered with that. The one I'm going to recommend for Android is this one called the Universal Tuner. And as its name suggests, it's universal. It's not just for violins, it's for pretty much any instrument. You need to just operate a drop-down menu on the front panel and scroll your way to finding the violin setting. And as you can see, it's pretty simple. It's just G, D, A and E, your four strings of the violin, and you can get those notes to sustain by just holding down the button for each string, and it's pretty easy, to go from there. Now the app I'm going to recommend for the iPhone is this one called the Simply Tuner. And this one is just for violin and I think cello, nothing for viola just yet. We'll work something out in a little while, I'm sure, for that. And likewise, extremely simple, as the name suggests, Simply Tuner. You have your G, your D, your A and your E strings. You just depress this speaker button and select the string you want to tune. So most student violins, and certainly all the violins that we have at Gladstone Park, have four of these screw-like things which we call fine tuners. And they're just here and at the end of the tailpiece, just below where the strings join the tailpiece there, and they will be the main thing that you use to make sure that your violin is in tune. I only have the one. I only have the one on my E string, and so I have to, one rule that I would say, the first string that you tune is your A string. That's just what we do. But I will have to break that rule now because I only have the E string and I really want to show you how these things work. Okay, so if I've got my universal tuner here, I'm going to hold down the E string, okay, and I'm going to do something. You don't need to worry about whether, damaging anything. You can happily put your violin out of tune using your adjuster, because there's no way, for instance, you're going to break a string. Okay, so here we are on the E. Actually sounds pretty in tune, but I'm going to do something horrible, put it right out of tune. So if you basically, to lower the pitch, you turn the adjuster anti-clockwise. To raise the pitch, you turn it clockwise. Okay, so I'm going to lower the pitch now of my E string. And I do that by turning the adjuster anti-clockwise. Okay, so now I've put my violin horribly out of tune. Listen to this. Yeah, that's not great. Okay, so what we want to do is put it back in tune. It's a little bit harder with these, usually a little bit harder to raise the pitch with them. The screws are a little bit tighter. Okay, so I've turned that clockwise now, and as you can see, it's kind of... And I can still hear, if you can still hear, the tuner app still playing away in the background, playing me a nice E. And eventually it will stop. Okay, so, as I say, you do that with every one of your strings. Starting with the A, probably do D, then G, then E next. Most of the time, your fine tuners are going to be all you need to keep your violin nicely in tune. However, there may be times that you actually need use your pegs to tune your violin, which may be a smidgen more difficult, I guess. Probably the most common reason for this would be that the fact that when a violin goes out of tune, it usually goes flat. In other words, the pitch of the string is too low. If you are always screwing in, like turning anti-clockwise your adjuster, you will eventually come to the stage where it's not going to go any further. And if your string is still too flat, then you've got a bit of a problem. That's when we have to turn to tuning with our pegs. So I'm going to just demonstrate to you how that is done. The main thing is with the adjusters, you can turn them a long way and it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. However, with the pegs, just a tiny little difference can make a very big difference to the pitch of the string. And if you do turn them too far, yeah, it is possible you might break a string, which could be a bit more of a problem. So I'm going to demonstrate probably on my D string how to do this, and you'll see that when I deliberately put my violin out of tune, I don't have to turn it too far, and it'll make a big difference. So here's the D. Okay, and this is my D. Now, just watch this. If you can see the peg here. See, I barely had to turn it at all, and it made a big difference. So, at this stage, your best bet, if it's still out of tune, is to hold your violin like this. Obviously the D peg is on the left hand side, so I'm holding it with my right hand and turning the peg, and as I turn the peg I'm pushing it in to hold it in. That will hold the peg in place. So only turned it a tiny bit, okay, and as you can see, it's pretty close to being in tune now. The other thing is that it's probably a good idea to turn it too far, so it's too sharp, and then what you can do is you can get some more play in your adjuster by turning that anti-clockwise, and then you won't have to do it with the pegs next time. The other thing, of course, that can happen is that occasionally you might knock a peg. They're not really held in by anything, it's just the wood jammed in, the friction holding them in place. So you might knock a peg and the string goes completely out of tune. Okay, let's say you can actually see there the D string, as I'm holding it up, is rather loose. That was probably not much more than half a turn of the peg, and it put it completely out of tune. So you can see that if you turn it the other way and put it sharp, there is a possibility that you may break the string. So you just have to be a bit careful. And once again, to put it back in tune, best idea is to hold the violin like this, and where are we? Okay, over here. I'm going to turn it about half a... Maybe do it this way so you can see. So and then we've got pretty close, and probably to get it perfectly in tune, you can use your adjuster then. Okay, so I guess the main thing with the pegs is it takes a little bit of force to turn them, but at the same time, while you're putting a bit of force into it, you have to be a little bit careful. Best of luck with that. But usually, if you just stick with your adjusters, you should be able to keep your violin pretty nicely in tune. All right, so look, if you have any questions, just in the comments section, I'll be more than happy to reply to them. I hope you found this video useful.